You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. Your love changes everything. There's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes every. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing.
Good morning, Rooted Men. Matt Ryan from the Rooted Ministries. Pleasure to be with you this morning, this Friday. Another very cold Friday morning. Oh, that light kind of washes me out, doesn't it? Sorry, I'm in my office, obviously. Haven't seen you yet this new year, so for those of you who I haven't seen, Happy New Year. Hopefully this is a start of a great year for you, for your family and friends, for your walk in faith. I know that you're in the right place this morning for that. The best way we can be improving our relationship with God is by digging into His Word every day. And that's what this time is all about. And I'm so excited to have you here with me, doing it and going through it. So we're continuing through Philippians, the letters of Paul, probably, arguably anyway, the greatest writer really that there ever was, certainly from this time period, the greatest writer about Christ for sure. He's got some things to say that are challenging today, and he's talking to the church in Philippi, of course. And remember that Paul is in his ministry at this point, right? Meaning he's out literally building disciples, building what the model is for discipleship, going out and working with the churches, with individuals, building them up, helping them understand how to apply the word they grew up knowing, how to apply the law that they used to know, and how it changes. So he starts by saying, therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only my presence, but now much more in my absence. Interesting, right? Kind of like the principal calling you out, right? But an interesting thought, like don't obeyed. Okay, so he's not talking about obeying him. He's talking about obeying God. You're conforming your lives to the way God wants you to. You're understanding this stuff. You're applying it to your life. You're getting closer, right? You're doing well. Keep it up. But how much more now, much more in my absence, right? I'm not going to be here to support you. Everyone looks to me as though I'm somehow on a higher level, right? But now you have to be on that higher level. Continue to set the example for me while I'm gone. I think that's really the challenge. And what a noble challenge that is, right? So it's not petty. It's not about obey me, It's not this Santa Claus idea, right? You better not pout. You better not cry. That's not it at all. He's saying you get it. You have the chance to live and be an example. So I challenge you to do that. To be sure, stand steadfast in what you know and what you've learned, and share it. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose. This is one of those lines that we can really struggle with, because it seems to say two things, and they're two pretty big things. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. To a lot of people, you can hear, it's up to you to earn your salvation when you hear a line like that. Your works are going to earn it. And then in the very next sentence, yes, there's a comma, but who knows if Paul actually wrote that comma or not, but for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose. So he's saying in the same sentence, or he could be saying, or we may be understanding, it's up to me and it's up to God. And I think what's really important to understand here is that we're really talking about that area in the middle, right? It's not up to me. It can't be up to me because I can't do it, right? So who's doing the work? Is it one or the other, or is it somewhere in the middle? That we're called to understand that God promises the good in the end, but we still have work to do to get there, right? The idea would be a farmer has a vision that he's going to have a great crop this year. Do you think he lays back, doesn't plant because God's going to give him a good crop, doesn't water, doesn't plow, just goes around talking about, oh, this is great, I don't have to do anything and God's going to bless me with a great crop? No, there's still work to be done. And because I'm going to bless you with the results, that gives you good reason to approach your work every day in faithfulness and glorifying God and go after it. You are going to put in the effort. I'm going to provide the fruit. So there really is this hand in hand or even hand in glove kind of idea that, yes, God is the one doing the work, making multiplying your work, I should say, right? Because in reality, I can't be the man I need to be. I can't be the Christian I need to be. I can't be the husband I need to be. I can't be the father I need to be. I can't be the neighbor I need to be. I can't be the elder I need to be. I can't be the boss I need to be. I can't be the employee I need to be. I can't do any of it. I cannot measure up. And it's in that moment of brokenness and vulnerability when we turn to God, when we turn to Jesus and say, I cannot do this, and we don't put a period, but we say, I cannot do this without you. Only through you can I accomplish great things. Only through you can I be atoned to God. There's this interesting thought that before we're a Christian, we cannot please God. We cannot. Once we meet Jesus, we can please God. And in our next life, we cannot displease God. What an amazing transition that is. What an arc it is to be on. And we're in that middle stage where we can. We are covered. Our transgressions are covered. This is not an issue of salvation. It's an issue of living the quality life that was designed for you. Doing more, being who you're created to be. That's where we can do some work that pleases. So I want to be clear with those things, right? The idea, the understanding, the realization that when I say I cannot be any of those things without you, it should be freeing. It shouldn't be condemning, right? There's no expectation for me to be all those things because I cannot possibly do them. Not just I'm not good enough to do them. I can't. It cannot be done. But I need you. So I come to you and I trust you, and you make promises that you have a life of abundance in store and you give me directions to live by. So that's really what we're talking about here, gentlemen. Do everything without grumbling or arguing. That's a tough one. So that you may become blameless and pure, children of God, without fault, in a warped and crooked generation, which we're still in. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. Then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. There's a lot in there, right? What are we doing when we're grumbling? Right? I turned my life over and said, God, I trust in you to deliver me through things, but here I'm going to complain. I'm going to grumble, which is me saying you're not good enough. The results you're giving me aren't good enough. I'm not trusting that in whatever moment it is that I'm complaining about, you're involved in it and you're enough. Ew, that's a tough one, right? You may become blameless and pure. Again, this kind of impossible standard, right? There's a lot of these sayings stitched on pillows, and you may have them on pillows in your house. I don't mean to offend you, but there's a real popular one that right now that says let go and let God. That's not what we're talking about here. It's not let go and let him do it for you. It's not kick back and expect the promises to be delivered, right? It's like for those of you who have the experience of being married. The wedding is fun, but the marriage is work, right? To have a quality marriage is work. Year after year, it's choices to work together, to humble yourself, to listen, to love, right? Just because the wedding's fun and you invite God in and you get married as a 3-part, right? You, your bride, and God are all involved. It doesn't mean the path is going to be easy, that it's all guaranteed and great. It still takes work. Same idea here, right? And the imagery at the end here is so powerful. When Paul talks about, even if I'm poured out like a drink offering. Think about that. All the energy that's within you being poured out for the purpose you've been called. Right? This real idea of living a sacrificial life. Now, as much as you study, you know that Paul lived a sacrificial life, right? Much like Jesus, we didn't have a place to live. We traveled. We relied on the goodness of strangers, right? Everything was about sacrificing who I was in order to serve. That's kind of what I want you to take away is think about, what does that imagery mean? What does it look like to live a sacrificial life? To live a life being poured out and to still find joy. Joy is a choice, my brothers. Choosing joy every day. That's the challenge. It's pretty easy to find examples of those who live sacrificial lives. We've already talked about Paul, obviously Jesus. But for anyone who is wondering what it looks like today, I'd challenge you to look at your pastor. Because pastors all over this country and this world are sacrificing many things to serve their congregations, to live out their calling. And I would tell you that ours is definitely one of them. The things that they sacrifice, the material successes that they could have in talents and capabilities and marketability in this world, in time, in quality time with family, in personal time, week after week, day after day, your pastor chooses the sacrificial life, chooses to be poured out like a drink offering in order that we, the sheep, may drink, may be fed. Don't forget that. And I challenge you, model yourself a little bit after it. You see it right here, right in front of you. That's what it looks like. And, the sacrifices may be tough, but the blessings are rich. That's what I got for you today, gentlemen. I hope that's a good word. I do hope that it lifts you up and encourages you, but I also hope it challenges you to think. I know I'm going to be thinking a lot about these things over the next week, so let's have a conversation about them. I'm over time as usual, so I'm going to let you go. I love you all. Let's make it a great Friday. Make it a firmly rooted day. And may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.